All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating world of exposition.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
It is, it is. And, to guide our exploration, we'll be drawing wisdom from this really insightful book called Influencing by Exposition.
No, love that title.
Yeah, it's a good one, right? I mean, think of it like a master class in explaining things with absolute clarity.
Clarity. Oh man, that's something we could all use a bit more of, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. What strikes me is how this source, even though it focuses primarily on public speaking, it really lays out these universal principles that apply to just about any situation where you need to, get your point across clearly.
It's so true. Whether you're writing, teaching, even just having a conversation, being able to explain yourself effectively is just it's crucial.
Yeah, and they really hit the ground running with this powerful quote from Thomas Carlyle right at the beginning.
Oh, Carlisle. Always a good place to start.
Right. He says, and I'm just going to quote this here, um, speak not at all in any wise till you have somewhat to speak. Care not for the reward of your speaking, but simply and with undivided mind for the truth of your speaking. Whoa.
Powerful stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
like a call to action for anyone who wants to communicate authentically.
It really emphasizes the importance of substance, right? It's like before we even get into the how of explaining something, we have to make sure that we actually have something worthwhile to say.
Substance over style, always.
So let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's crack open this exposition nut, and see what's inside. What exactly is it? And just as important, what is it not?
Okay, so at its core, exposition is all about revealing the true nature of something. It's like think of it as shining a spotlight on an idea, illuminating it from every angle.
So, like, if I was trying to explain how a car engine works, that would be exposition in action.
Exactly. But if you were to describe the sleek lines of a particular car, like its aesthetic appeal, that would be description.
Okay, I'm starting to see the distinction.
And if you were to recount, let's say, a memorable road trip you took, that would be narration.
Got it. Got it. And what about, like, if I'm trying to convince somebody that they should buy a particular car?
Ah, that's where we enter the realm of argumentation, right? You're persuading, advocating for a specific position.
Okay, so exposition is really about laying that foundation of understanding, making sure everybody's on the same page before we jump into anything else. But why does this even matter? I mean, can't we just, wing it and hope for the best?
Well, I think we've all been in situations where a lack of clarity has led to misunderstandings, arguments, just general frustration. Exposition helps us avoid that. It's about making sure everyone is starting from the same point.
Oh, tell me about it. I can't count how many times I've been in a debate where it turns out we were arguing about completely different things.
Exactly. And exposition is that foundation for clear communication, building that shared understanding.
But there's got to be a balance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Too little and people are left clueless.
Right.
Too much and you just sound condescending.
It's about respecting your audience, respecting their time and intelligence. Finding that sweet spot is crucial.
Okay, so we've established what exposition is and why it's so important, but the big question is, how do we do it? What tools, what techniques can we use to become these, master explainers?
Well, the source outlines several techniques. And the good news is it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, right? We've got a whole toolbox at our disposal.
I'm ready to upgrade my toolbox.
Okay, so the first tool, and we've already touched upon it, is definition.
Okay.
It's all about using clear, concise language to really draw precise boundaries around a concept.
Okay, so this is where, like, a dictionary comes in handy.
Sure, dictionaries can be helpful, but sometimes those definitions can be a bit dry and abstract, right?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of vague definitions.
I hear you. The source actually quotes Arlo Bates, and I love this definition. He says, to expound is to set forth the nature, the significance, the characteristics, and the bearing of an idea or a group of ideas.
Wow, okay, that's pretty comprehensive.
Right. It's not just about a simple dictionary definition. It's about really digging into the essence of the idea.
So it's like a 360-degree view of a concept.
Exactly. And notice how Bates goes on to contrast exposition with description. He says, exposition therefore differs from description in that it deals directly with the meaning or intent of its subject instead of with its appearance.
Ah, okay. So using contrast can actually help solidify a definition.
Absolutely. It's like you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what exposition is, and this is what it is not.
Gotcha. Makes sense. What else? What other tools do we have in this exposition arsenal?
Well, next up we have example.
Oh, I love examples.
Right. They make things so much clearer. This is where you bring in the familiar to shed light on the unfamiliar.
Okay, give me an example of that.
So imagine a child asking you how a steam engine works.
Okay.
Instead of trying to, define all those complex mechanics, you might use the example of a boiling tea kettle
Ah, okay.
to illustrate those basic principles of steam and pressure.
Okay, that's a good one.
Right. It's about making those connections, relating the unknown to something they already understand.
So we've got definition, contrast, and example. What about analogy?
Oh, analogies. Analogies are powerful. They can be so vivid and memorable.
I love a good analogy. They click things into place.
Right. And the source gives a fantastic example from Beecher's Liverpool speech. He says, "A servage is a man of one story, and that one story a cellar. When a man begins to be civilized, he raises another story." And he goes on to explain how a civilized person, with developed faculties, is like a building with story upon story.
Whoa, that's a powerful image.
Right. It really makes you think about human development in a whole new way.
It's like he's saying that our minds are like these buildings, and as we learn and grow, we add more and more stories.
Exactly. A well-crafted analogy, it can really stick with you.
Okay, so we've covered definition, contrast, example, and analogy. Are we missing any other like exposition superpowers? What else can we use to, really become these Jedi masters of explanation?
Well, one more key ingredient is referencing experience.
Okay.
This is all about connecting with the listener's existing knowledge.
Oh, okay. So instead of just throwing abstract theories at them, you're grounding your explanation in something that they can actually relate to.
Precisely. And T.H. Huxley does this brilliantly. He compares complex scientific discoveries to everyday reasoning. He says, the vast results obtained by science are won by no mystical faculties, but by the same mental processes practiced by everyone in the humblest affairs of life. He's basically saying that scientists are using the same methods that we all use, just more rigorously.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like even rocket science is built on the same foundation of thinking that we use, in our everyday lives.
Exactly. Whether we're explaining, a complex theory or just trying to teach someone how to bake a cake, tapping into their existing knowledge is so powerful.
And on the flip side, you can use relatable, even humorous observations to make a point.
Oh, for sure. Shakespeare was a master of this.
Oh, yeah.
Think about his description of Sir John Falstaff. He piles on detail after detail, like a moist eye, a dry hand, a yellow cheek, a white beard, a decreasing leg, an increasing belly. It's hilarious, and it paints such a vivid picture.
It's like he's holding up this mirror to human nature, and we can't help but laugh.
Right, and that's what makes it so memorable.
Okay, this is all gold. I'm already feeling like a more powerful explainer just from hearing these techniques.
That's great, but it's not just about knowing them. It's about choosing the right one for the situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like having a toolbox full of, shiny new tools. But if you don't know which tool to use for which job, you're not going to get very far. So how do we decide which exposition approach is best?
That's where it gets really interesting. The source actually provides a set of questions to ask ourselves when preparing to explain something. It's like having a cheat sheet for clarity.
Okay, I'm grabbing my notepad. This sounds important.
Okay, so the first question is, what is it and what is it not? This helps establish clear boundaries.
Makes sense. You don't want any ambiguity creeping in there.
Right. And then you ask, what is it like and you like? This is where those contrast and analogy skills come in handy.
Okay, so highlighting the similarities and differences really helps an idea stand out.
Exactly. It sharpens the edges,
That reminds me of when I was first learning to play the guitar. It seemed so complicated at first, but then my teacher broke it down into these simple steps, and he contrasted those steps with things that I already knew how to do, and suddenly it just clicked.
That's a great example. By showing how something is both similar to and different from things we already understand, it makes it so much easier to grasp.
Okay, what's next? What's the next question on this cheat sheet of clarity?
Next up, we delve into cause and effect. So the question is, what are its causes and effects? This helps us understand where the concept comes from and what impact it has.
Oh, okay, so this is about understanding the concept in in context,
Yeah.
seeing the bigger picture. I like it. It comes after that.
Then we ask, how shall it be divided? This is where we analyze the concept and break it down into its component parts.
Ah, okay. So we can understand the whole by understanding its parts. It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or in this case, a single part.
Exactly. It's about breaking things down into manageable chunks.
What's next?
Okay, next we broaden our perspective with this question. With what subjects is it correlated?
Okay.
So this is about understanding how this concept connects to other areas of knowledge. It's like creating this web of understanding.
Oh, so it's not just about the concept in isolation. It's about how it fits into the bigger picture.
Precisely.
Okay, what else?
Then we get personal with this question. What experiences does it recall? This is where we connect with the listener's own life, making the unfamiliar relatable.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, this concept isn't just some abstract idea in a textbook. It's something that you've probably encountered in your own life.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm loving this cheat sheet. What's the final question?
The final question is, what examples illustrate it?
Examples. Always a good idea.
Right. They bring the abstract to life. It's like that saying, show, don't tell.
I'm already feeling so much more equipped to explain things clearly. This is fantastic.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, these questions are just a starting point.
Right.
The beauty of exposition is that it's flexible. You can adapt these methods to fit your needs and your audience.
Okay, so we've got our foundational techniques. Definition, contrast, example, analogy, and referencing experience.
Right.
And we've got our cheat sheet of questions to guide us.
Exactly.
But the source mentions a few other exposition tools as well, like discarding, classification, and analysis. What can you tell us about those?
Ooh, those are good ones. Let's start with discarding. It's all about, well, discarding the unnecessary. Clearing away the clutter, getting rid of irrelevant details.
Okay, so like decluttering your explanation. I like that.
Exactly. It's about creating a clear path for the listener. Imagine a lawyer addressing a jury. They might say, it's not pertinent to consider the defendant's personal life. The only question is, does the evidence prove guilt or innocence?
Right, so laser focus.
Exactly.
Okay, discarding, I like it. What about classification?
Classification is about assigning a subject to its proper category.
Okay, so it's about organizing our ideas, creating a mental filing system for knowledge.
Precisely. It helps us see the relationships between ideas.
Classification, check. Now, what about analysis? Is that where we get our magnifying glass out?
Yeah, you could say that. Analysis is about breaking down a complex subject into its essential parts.
Okay, so if you were explaining the structure of a government or the workings of a human cell, those are definitely things that would benefit from a good breakdown.
Absolutely. It makes complex ideas more approachable and understandable.
Love it. So we've got discarding for clearing away the clutter, classification for organizing our ideas, and analysis for breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. This is all so fascinating. I'm starting to see how we can use these techniques in so many areas of life, not just public speaking, but writing, teaching, even just having a clear conversation with your friends and family.
That's what's so exciting about it. It's a universal skill, really.
Okay, before we get too carried away, there's one more technique that we need to cover. Generalization. What's the deal with that?
Generalization. It's about moving from the specific to the general, deriving a broad principle from a collection of facts.
Okay, so it's like observing a pattern and then coming up with a rule based on that pattern. If I notice that every time I eat spicy food, I get the hiccups, then I might generalize and say that spicy food causes hiccups.
Exactly. It's about extracting those underlying principles. A scientist, for example, might observe the behavior of many different animals in a particular environment,
Okay.
and then make a generalization about how that environment influences their behavior.
Okay, I see. So it's about using the power of observation to draw broader conclusions. But how do we know when a generalization is accurate? I mean, correlate doesn't always equal causation, right?
That's a great point, and that's where critical thinking comes in. A valid generalization has to be based on sufficient evidence. The source highlights a great example from Oliver Wendell Holmes, who masterfully builds a generalization by accumulating fact after fact. He says, and I'm going to quote him here, "Take a hollow cylinder, the bottom closed while the top remains open, and pour in water to the height of a few inches. Next, cover the water with a flat plate or piston which fits the interior of the cylinder perfectly. Then apply heat to the water, and we shall witness the following phenomena. After the lapse of some minutes, the water will begin to boil, and the steam accumulating at the upper surface will make room for itself by raising the piston slightly. As the boiling continues, more and more steam will be formed and raise the piston higher and higher till all the water is boiled away and nothing but steam is left in the cylinder. Now, this machine, consisting of cylinder, piston, water, and fire, is the steam engine in its most elementary form.
Whoa, that's a lot to unpack. But he walks us through the process step by step, and then bam, he hits us with the generalization. And it's so clear. It's so convincing.
It's a beautiful example of how generalization, when done well, can be so powerful.
Okay, my brain is officially full. This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've leveled up my communication skills in a big way.
Me too. It's amazing how just unpacking these techniques can really shed light on the art of clear thinking and communication.
But before we wrap things up, I want to make sure our listeners left with something to ponder or challenge. What's one final thought-provoking question that we can leave them with?
Ooh, that's a good one. How about this? What's one concept that UVE struggled to explain clearly in the past? Now that you've got these techniques in your toolbox, how might you approach it differently?
Ooh, I like that. It's a great challenge to put these ideas into practice. You know what's fascinating to me? It's how exposition is often seen as this dry academic skill. But as we've been exploring these techniques, I've realized it's so much more than that. It's about connecting with people, sparking understanding, sharing knowledge in a way that really resonates.
It really is. It's about empathy, putting yourself in the listener's shoes and finding the most effective way to bridge that gap of understanding.
It's funny. We started this deep dive with that quote from Thomas Carlyle about speaking with undivided mind for the truth. And I think that really sums up the heart of exposition.
Absolutely.
It's about clarity, yes, but it's also about authenticity and a genuine desire to share knowledge.
Well said. And that's what makes it such a powerful tool for any form of communication.
Well, this has been an eye-opening journey for sure, and I bet our listener is already out there putting these newfound exposition skills to good use, explaining everything from the inner workings of their smartphone to the mysteries of the universe.
I hope so. And remember, this is just the beginning.
That's right. Keep those brains buzzing, knowledge explorers. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, we have a whole library of episodes covering all sorts of fascinating topics, just waiting for you to dive in.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, ready to unpack even more insights and equip you with even more communication superpowers.
Until then, happy explaining.
Happy explaining. All right, let's dive back into our cheat sheet for clarity.
Yeah, I'm ready for more. Where were we?
We left off with, what are its causes and effects? That's how we figure out the origin and the consequences of the concept, where it comes from and the impact it makes.
Okay, yeah, cause and effect, like connecting the dots, seeing how it all fits together.
Exactly. Then we move on to, how shall it be divided? We got to analyze the concept and break it down, into all its parts.
It's like taking a car engine apart, seeing all those individual components.
Perfect analogy. Understanding each part to understand the whole.
Okay, breaking it down. Got it. What's next?
Now we got to broaden our perspective a bit, so we ask, with what subjects is it correlated? We want to see how it connects to other areas of knowledge.
Ah, because nothing exists in a vacuum, right? It's all connected somehow.
Exactly. It's like weaving a web of understanding, and that's what makes learning so cool, discovering those connections.
Absolutely. All right, give me the next question.
Next up, what experiences does it recall? It's all about tapping into those personal connections.
So we're taking that abstract idea and making it relatable to the listener's own life.
Exactly. Bridging the gap between the theory and the personal.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the last question on our list?
Last but not least, what examples illustrate it? Always got to have those concrete examples ready.
Examples are key. It's like they say, show, don't tell.
Right. Examples make it real, make it stick.
This cheat sheet is gold, I'm telling you. It's like a roadmap to crafting clear, engaging explanations.
And the best part, you can adapt these questions, use them in different ways depending on what you're explaining.
So we've got our techniques definition, contrast, example, analogy, referencing experience,
Yep.
and our cheat sheet of questions to guide us.
We're well on our way to becoming exposition masters.
We are. But hold on, the source mentions some other tools. Discarding, classification, analysis. What about those?
Oh, those are good ones too. Discarding is like spring cleaning for your explanation.
Spring cleaning.
Yeah, you're getting rid of anything that doesn't belong. Any irrelevant details that might distract from the main point.
Ooh, okay. Decluttering, simplifying. Makes sense.
Exactly. You got to be selective. Focus on what really matters.
Like a sculptor chiseling away at the excess stone to reveal the masterpiece within.
Love that. You're getting it.
Okay, discarding, check. Now, classification. Kara. What's that all about?
Think of it like organizing your bookshelves. You're putting similar things together so they're easier to find and understand.
So we're bringing order to the chaos, creating a mental filing system.
Exactly. It helps us see those relationships between ideas.
Okay, classification, check. Last one. Analysis.
Analysis is all about breaking things down into their essential parts.
Ah, like taking a jigsaw puzzle apart, examining each piece to see how it fits into the whole.
Exactly. So if you're tackling a big, complex topic, analysis helps you make it manageable.
Makes sense. So we've got discarding, classification, analysis. Wow, I'm starting to see how useful exposition can be in so many areas of life. Not just public speaking, but writing, teaching, even just having a good conversation.
It's true. It's a skill that can enhance any kind of communication.
All right, before we go too far down that road, there's one more technique we need to cover. Generalization.
Generalization. It's like taking a step back, moving from those specific details to a broader principle.
Okay, so if I see that water boils at a certain temperature, and I see that happening over and over again, I can generalize that water always boils at that temperature.
Perfect example. You're observing a pattern and formulating a rule.
But how do we know if a generalization is, true? I mean, just because things happen together doesn't mean one causes the other.
Excellent point. That's where critical thinking is crucial. A good generalization needs solid evidence and careful reasoning.
So we can't just jump to conclusions.
Nope. The source gives a great example of a carefully constructed generalization from Oliver Wendell Holmes. He basically walks us through the workings of a steam engine, step by step, building up to this grand conclusion about how it all works.
That's a great example. He doesn't just throw the generalization at us, he builds up to it.
Exactly. It's all about building a strong foundation for your generalization.
Man, my brain is like overflowing with new knowledge. I feel like I've got this whole new set of tools for communication.
That's what we like to hear. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
There's always more to learn, right?
Absolutely. But before we move on, I think it's time for a challenge.
Oh, I love a good challenge. What do you have in mind?
How about this? Think of a concept, something you've, struggled to explain clearly in the past.
Okay, yeah.
And now, armed with all these awesome techniques we talked about, how would you approach it? How would you explain it differently?
Oh, I like that. It's a real challenge to put these ideas into action. It's funny, before we started this deep dive, I kind of thought of exposition as being a bit dry.
Oh, yeah.
Like, lecturing people, overwhelming them with facts and figures.
Yeah, I can see that.
But now, I don't know, I see it as something much more valuable.
Yeah.
It's like building bridges between minds,
It's about making those connections, fostering understanding.
And it all comes back to that quote from Thomas Carlyle, speaking with undivided mind for the truth.
It's about clarity, but it's also about authenticity. It's about genuinely wanting to share knowledge and understanding.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes exposition such a powerful tool, not just for public speaking, but for any form of communication.
It really is. It's a skill that can enhance any interaction where clarity is key.
Well, this has been a truly enlightening journey. And I have a feeling our listeners are already out there putting these newfound skills to good use.
Oh, I hope so. Explaining everything from, how their smartphone works to the mysteries of the universe.
That's right. Keep those brains buzzing, knowledge explorers. And hey, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, we have a whole library of episodes on all sorts of fascinating topics just waiting for you.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, ready to explore a whole new world of ideas.
Until then, happy explaining.